everyone. Welcome to Tuesdays with Tammy. I'm Tammy von Nordheim, and this week I'm bringing to you another wonderful guest. I'm so excited to introduce this guest because I've been following him for a while and I've really seen a lot of great things, and I really wanted to have a good, deep conversation with him, and I thought it might be a great idea to share that with you. So, Terry D. Swain is an influential speaker, author, entrepreneur, philanthropist, activist, and prominent thought leader whose focus is empowering people, especially the Black community, to succeed. Terry is the founder and chief executive officer of Swain Foundation Incorporated, a not for profit that provides tools, services, and resources for empowering people, communities, and businesses to succeed. He is also the founder of Talladega Black Justice League, an activist group that fights against threats of race-based injustice, discrimination, and equality. Terry's life mission is to empower people to empower other people. So join me today as we welcome Terry D. Swain. Hi, Terry. How are you?
Hi. Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you today for this conversation. I think it's a awesome opportunity, and I just look forward to also connecting you with you on some other things that you have going on as well.
Great, great. Thank you. So, Terry, before we dive into like current events and what's going on in the world and what's happening in your life, tell me a little bit more about the Talladega Black Justice League.
Okay, so the Talladega Black Justice League is a newly formed group or organization. And in the midst of everything that has been going on in the world, as it relates to Black Lives Matter, justice, and the fight for equality, there was brought to my attention some racial and some injustices taking place in the city school system within Talladega. And I'm originally from Talladega, Alabama, so I have a lot of family there, a lot of friends there, and a lot of history and connection there. I was born, raised, went to, graduated from high school there in Talladega. So I'm still connected, and I've also done some ministry work there in Talladega as well. So, and when it came about, it was brought to my attention by the Talladega mayor. He's the first black mayor, so he made history there in Talladega. And he reached out to me and just told me, asked me had I heard about things that were going on in the school system. And so I connected with him and some other activists in that area, and it just organically grew, and we decided to put a label on it and name it so that we can have an organized effort in our
Yes.
fight for justice there in Talladega. And so that was the birth of it. And so we've led marches, protests, rallies. We boycotted businesses that have shown that they were in compliance with the things that are going on there. So it's been a great movement, and it's been very impactful, and we are seeing results. But I do believe that this is just the start.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a one-stop issue, but there are other issues that have been uncovered and exposed from that. And so, yeah, we're just there fighting for justice and equality for those who have been discriminated against and have been victims of that systemic oppression and racism that's going on around the world, but we found it there in Talladega also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, what made you, create this foundation? Is there something specific that's happened to you in your life that made you even more impassioned to, dive into the Black Justice League, or somebody,
Yeah,
maybe something happened to someone you know?
well, actually, it's been a combination of things. I've always been a person of the people, like I've always been involved in community work. And so, in doing so, of course, people kind of lean to you when they see that you have some influence. And I believe that that's been the greatest thing is that because I've always been um, involved in the community, fighting for justice and just trying to make a difference. And as we discussed earlier, just empowering the community and empowering people. And so I've been directly affected by it. My family, and it hasn't, along with what's going on in the world today, I think that kind of pushed pushed me more into finding opportunities to be able to fight for justice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in my educating myself, I think that it really found me. I didn't really find it because I wasn't in pursuit of it. It's just something that has always been a part of me. Just fighting for people to be empowered and have better opportunities. And so, and that's how we landed in this position to where we created an organization that people are really are geared up and they're passionate about it as well. And so we have a lot of support.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so today, these days, people are protesting, peacefully protesting. There's been some rioting and some looting. There's been some
Right.
boycotting. There's been some marches. In your opinion, what is the best thing that people can do in the community in order to try to receive justice and support and encourage justice in America?
Tammy, that's an awesome question. And that's a question that I've been asked a lot. And I've also been, not only have I been asked a lot, but I've also wondered and pondered on that question myself. But in my attempts to find a clear answer for that particular question, I found out that because there are different problems and racism shows up and manifests itself in so many different ways, that there's not one solution, there are multiple solutions. I believe that individually, a person has to start with themselves. It has to start with what their perspective is and their approach is, their reaction, their responses to racism, and not on and injustices and discrimination, all those things. But however, a person can can make change from their personal life, I think that's the beginning of it. And so, how they interact with their family, how they teach their children, how they engage coworkers, how they, find opportunities to just get involved in it. And it can be from signing petitions, it could be being a part of the marches, being a part of the protests, being a part of the rallies, being a part of just conversations, finding platforms to discuss it and find solutions. There are just so many different solutions. I believe even getting involved with voting. Even down to filling out the census. For city school systems and communities to get you know funding that they need. It's important that they even fill out the census. Vote, educate yourselves, post the information that you're learning, share it. So I think there are so many different ways, but ultimately, I think it comes down to an individual um, finding that individual purpose and your in the way that you can fight it yourself within your area of influence.
Yeah, yeah. I think those are some great thoughts. And as you were speaking, something occurred to me that I was thinking that, you know what, as far as like helping people to find ways that they can contribute and make an impact, I believe that educating ourselves and educating those around us is going to be key. I believe that voting is huge. But before people go vote, they need to make sure they are registered. Before they,
Yes.
even as they are registering to vote, or if they've already registered or they are about to go register, they need to have a better understanding over, the wherever they live, the laws, the legislation, how that process works. And I know that when I was in high school, I think um, if we ever took a trip to the to downtown to the government offices, it was like one trip, and we got to watch people participate and be like pages or pretend do it like a pretend a session, for example. But
Right.
everybody in the school doesn't get to go do that. You have to be signed up in a specific class, and then it's just a small group of people because they can't take the entire school, right? And so
Right.
the people that go have a better, more clearer understanding, but the people who don't simply read a textbook, they get tested on their memorization of what's in the textbook, but do they
Right.
really have a clearer understanding of what they're reading? And so, even myself, what I've been discovering, at least like this in 2020. And actually, when Obama was running for president, I discovered how much I really didn't know or didn't understand about like what the process is and what's happening. You know,
Right.
how Congress and Senate and the House of Representatives, how they all really work together. And I didn't understand it because I didn't remember it, because I'm sure I had to learn it and pass so I could pass my grade.
Right.
But I remember it being boring, so boring in school. And so when I think about that, I'm just like, how can we help more people? I mean, not just, I mean, our people specifically, but not just our people, but anybody. How can we help educate them and help them want to be educated about it? And so it occurred to me that, there, maybe if there were some cue cards, how you can have
Right.
something that really breaks it down, keeps it basic and simple, laminated. I mean, I know that's pretty basic, but you want to make
Yeah.
sure it stays protected and it's not so easy to just be ruined and thrown away. But just some of the basic stuff that people can carry around with them, and
I agree.
if they have some downtime, they can like take a look at it. If they are in a discussion with someone, whether it's on social media or in person, and they want to be able to refer to something to make sure that they are speaking intelligently about it, I would have no shame at all pulling out a cue card to make sure that at least I knew what I
Yes.
was talking about and I'm learning at the same time, versus sounding as if I don't know what I'm talking about, so that they can then pull one over my head or make me feel, less than because I'm really confused.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
like that idea, as far as it being really simple and basic, so that it can be used by from middle schoolers to the elderly. Anybody
Yes.
would not mind carrying around, a small couple of pieces of cue cards just on the basics. They don't have to know deep and dig into it, but just starting with the basics, and then there could be a whole nother level where it breaks down the basics into another structure
Exactly.
that's easy for them to understand. So I just had
Yes.
that
I
idea.
like
Maybe
that.
that's something I can work on, you know,
Yeah.
going
I
forward.
think that's awesome. Yeah, because I, again, education is power. And even there's a scripture that says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And and I don't think that's just a spiritual, concept, but I mean it doesn't matter where you apply that. If there's a lack of knowledge, then it prevents people from acquiring and obtaining um, and understanding, rights that they have, and understanding how they can affect and impact change. So I think what you were just saying is I'm all on board for it, because myself, as you were talking, I could identify that I was not engaged with politics when I was younger, even through high school and even after high school, because I didn't see myself as a part of the process. And as you said, in school, I wasn't taught it in a way where I could retain it and apply it to my life. It didn't seem applicable. It didn't seem like it was something that I needed to know. But like you said, when things start happening in the world, and and on a level where you begin to see how it works and how it impacts your life, then I think that's when people tend to get involved. And even when you said that about voter registration, one of the things that we do, we incorporated that into our protests and our rallies. That wherever we are, and if there's a group of people there, then we're going to have voter registration, so that we're going to check to make sure people are registered, and also register them if they're not, and then also provide them with information, because there are so many people who don't think that they have the right, they can vote, but they can. And so it is a process. But like you said, I think that voting is very important. But you have to be knowledgeable of it, and you have the local level issues, laws, and candidates, so that you can know how it directly affects you. Because I think more than just the presidential and the Senate, and when we're voting and electing those officials, that the ones that we are directly impacted by are on the local level.
Exactly. And I also believe that, we need more of us running for office, starting
Yes.
at the local level, but we need to
Yes.
inspire Generation X and, to want to run. And it doesn't even have to be Generation X, it can be our generation too, Generation Z,
Yep.
millennials, but to want to run for office. And I believe that we'll have some of that here, but I think in order for people to really step up to the plate and engage enough to be inspired to run for office, they need to feel like really sure and confident that they know what they're doing, because nobody wants to
Right.
start running for office and as soon as a microphone is stuck in their face, whether it's
Right.
media or whether it's having to debate with someone, they appear confused, clueless, not prepared. So that's where I think these cue cards, I mean, it could just, just so people feel more confident. But I really believe that more of us need to be running for office, and more of us need to be voting at these local levels and not just waiting for the presidential time to vote.
Right. Yep.
Yes.
I 100% agree.
Right, right. So, tell me a little bit more about, well, not a little bit more, we haven't touched on this. How do you think mental health wellness, mental health awareness plays a part in what's happening in today's society?
You know, it it's amazing that because when I think about, the role that mental health and mental health awareness plays, for some time, I think that our community has suppressed so much and felt that it was necessary, that it eventually expresses itself and shows up in different ways. And sometimes if we're not educated, we can identify it and we pass it off as, anger or frustration. And it may come out in a relationship, it may come out in different places. But I believe that it's been suppressed because we've been conditioned, even back to slavery, on how we deal with those mental health issues. And sometimes we don't even identify them as mental health issues. We call them by other names, and so they don't get addressed properly. But I believe that even now that we're coming to that awareness and that awakening of how important it is for us to identify these issues as mental health issues, and that awareness is here now. And with that, I think about how myself as a black man and my son as a black man and just black people in general, how every day of our lives in some way we have had to deal with racism, whether it was, if it's systemic or if it's, just by overt or covert racism, or just how it comes in bias. It comes in so many different ways on the job, um, in politics, in education, in different places, that we see it, and we sometimes I feel like we allow it to affect us, and that stress builds up, and we don't have an outlet because, again, we've been conditioned to think that we have to handle everything on our own, that we don't go see the professionals who are able to help us with those issues. But again, I believe that there's an awakening now. But even with what's going on in the world, as we look out and we see these issues, and it's like the world is blind to them. And so again, that's frustration, there's more stress. Why don't people see this? And I think it just builds up. But now we're at a point where I do believe that it is starting to get addressed more than it has been in the past.
Right. And so I like that you touched on your thoughts as a black man. Do you think that there's a stigma in society where black men don't feel comfortable going to see a mental health therapist?
Yeah, yeah. I think that that stigma is there. I do believe that some of it is, we're shedding some of that, that old stigma of not wanting to go even see any physician, for that matter. Because again, we're waking up as a black community to see that these are things that we haven't been doing. We haven't been taking care of our mental health or our physical health. And so what I've started to do, because I've been studying generational black wealth, and along with generational black wealth, you can't really separate that from your health because they're all associated. And so I teach my son by example now. I was given to that same stigma that, I'm a man, I'm not supposed to cry, I'm not supposed to hurt, I'm not supposed to, need anybody else. I have to find a way or make a way. And but after I came to the realization that that's not the way, that I'm only hurting myself if I'm not asking for help or seeking help. And so to change that narrative, I not only do I empower my son by educating him, but through experiences, I started taking him with me when I began to go to do my yearly physicals and checkups. So to get him in that routine. And it's the same with, financially. I allow him to be involved in financial decisions making in business, now. So he's about to start his own business. And even with the mental health aspect, I have conversations with him now where, and we've always had that relationship where he's been open to me and we discuss a lot. But as he got older, I could tell that there were certain parts of his life that he was trying to do like I used to do, where he was trying to hide those from me because as a man, I guess he didn't want his father to know that these was areas of weakness or concern. And so I just had to just pry and open up that and make that a comfortable space for us so that we can continue that conversation. So I do believe that as a black man, that stigma is still there, even though we're overcoming it. That we just have to be engaged with each other so that we can continue to improve that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that information that you just shared with us. It made me think of another question. I love the relationship it sounds like you have with your sons. I love how you are setting great examples and taking them along with you, probably to vote, probably, I mean, like you said, to the
Yes.
physicians, even in
Yep.
being involved in some of the financial matters, so that they can learn. So my question is, for the families where it's a single parent home and it's usually, like primarily the mother with boys in that family, how do you, what advice would you give to a single mother on how to create that space for openness with her son to teach him that it's okay to feel his feelings, that it's okay to have questions, that it's okay to not always have to be 100% strong and wearing a mask? What advice would you give her on how to do what you're doing with your sons, where you take them to the physician with you, and some of just making sure that they are looking out for the sons and not just
Right.
assuming that they'll figure it out? Because I mean,
Yeah.
because I know sometimes, especially in a single parent home where it's the mother, um, she's probably working more than one job. She's working two or three
True.
jobs, trying to just make ends meet, and staying prayerful over her kids. And so a lot of times the kids have to grow up really fast, and that's a lot of times seen as appreciated by the parent, and they can be proud that, oh yeah, they can cook and they know to be careful here and there. But a lot of the things that we are experiencing today, where our generation, our communities are lacking in, is the guidance and the support and the
Yeah.
confidence and the encouragement to be aware and engaged with the political arena, financial matters, self-care where it has to do with a physician or mental health. I know I just made that a
Yeah.
really long question. So,
No, no,
but
no. I
yes,
I think
what would you like to
that was
add?
necessary for the framework of the question I because I understand exactly. I understand the question perfectly. And when one of the things I believe to answer that question as simple as I can is there have to be mentors. There have to be, and specifically for black single mothers, there have to be black male mentors. One of the things I did is to educate myself and to get as much information as I can on whatever area where I needed to be educated. Not only did I research, but I found a mentor for each one of those areas. And for single mothers, want to have to come out of their comfort zone as well, because I know sometimes we even have this stigma in the black community where even on Father's Day, if a if there's an absent father for whatever reason, if he's quote unquote deadbeat, if he's incarcerated, if he's just AOL, absent, without leave. Or he could be, on drugs or whatever the case, whatever reason he's not there. A mother can't do the job of a father. Um, she can, in a sense. Were we disconnected?
No, we're still here.
Okay, I'm sorry. My screen changed, so I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So you can still see me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So my screen changed for whatever reason, but I was saying that a mother can't be father, and I know it's something. And we as a Black community, we have all these little things that we do. And I think one of them is on Father's Day. We'll tell the mothers Happy Father's Day if they're just a single mother. But we have to get out of that notion that she can do it all, because she can't. She cannot teach a young Black boy how to be a Black man. And so with that, I believe that the mentors are essential for a young Black man for a young Black boy to grow and become a Black man. He has to have mentors in his life that will help him with those areas. A mother has to seek those, whether it's in their family, if it's an uncle, if it's her father, if it's a grandfather, if it's a coach in the school system that she knows, if it's the pastor, if that pastor is someone who is engaging and qualified. But of course, to find qualified mentors that can help and mentor that child in those different areas. And so basically, I was saying that I have found different mentors to say that she may have to find multiple mentors that can mentor him to become the person that he needs to be, um, by that relationship with another Black man who can identify and associate with what he's going through and point him in the right direction.
So that's great. Thank you. I'd like to add to that, because I agree with you. She has to find mentors and maybe several mentors in different areas. But the issue might be that there's not enough people voluntarily wanting to be mentors to other people's kids who are not theirs. They don't have kids of their own, or they have their own kids, and life is very full and busy for them. So I would like to challenge other men, especially Black men, to
Yes.
step up to the plate and volunteer. If you know that there's a single woman who has children, specifically boys, then reach out to her, because she may,
Yeah.
from the outside looking in, she might feel like, well, I don't want to bother him because I know he's got things going on
Yeah.
himself. Or
Yep.
maybe she doesn't even realize that that Black male has specific talents or specific connections, that would be great for her son to be introduced to and exposed to. So I think I'd like to challenge Black men that even if you just do it like once every 2 or 3 months, choose a child or
Right.
choose a family and reach out to them and say, hey, listen, I wanted to know if I could stop by and pick them up, or if I could come over, or if they could come over, or we could meet somewhere for 2 or 3 hours, half a day, the whole day, or whatever. And we're just going to kind of hang out. And then when you're hanging out, in, create scenarios, ask them questions like, if this happened, how would you handle it? Or how have you been feeling lately? Is there anything that's been bothering you that you just haven't felt like you had anybody to talk to? Or how
Right.
about we go and we learn to we do something fun. Maybe we go zip lining, but at the same time, then we stop by. If you have a friend who's a mechanic or something, we stop by and just talk to Jim and see what he's got going on, and maybe he'll let us watch a little bit while he's changing a tire, changing the oil. Maybe you have a friend who's a doctor and say, hey, listen, I'm going to be picking up a friend's son to hang out with me that day. Do you mind if we stop by the office so I can just like introduce you to
Right.
him and let him see you doing your thing? If you have somebody who's in politics, do the same thing. So you may not personally, as the Black man, be the politician, be the physician, be the attorney, be the mechanic, be the, whatever. but you might know somebody else who is, and especially if it's somebody else is black, that's important. If
Right.
they're not black, it's still good to expose them to different things and let them still see, oh, this is what it's like behind the scenes, oh, this is what happens there, oh, this is cool, you own this shop, oh, this is your own medical
Right.
practice, what, you're an attorney, well, who do you work, you don't work for anybody, you work for yourself, and it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be that their only role models are going to be what they see on TV, which is athletes,
Exactly.
celebrity singers, celebrity social media people, because they're not doing anything, but they become a celebrity because they knew how to manipulate the algorithms and
Right.
get followers
Yeah.
and become an influencer,
Yeah.
self-proclaimed influencer. But pick up with somebody's child or have them meet you somewhere and just simply have a plan to expose them to something that they may not have been exposed to before. And even if they've been exposed to them before, it won't hurt for them to be exposed to it again, but from a different perspective. It could be simply that if you pick them up and you guys go shoot some hoops, or you go to the gym together and then you go get ice cream, you talk about stuff like, what do you think it would be like if you owned your own ice cream shop? What do you think it would be like if you owned all these vending machines in different areas? You can have vending machines in hospitals and all
That's
these,
right.
name places. Like, get their thoughts like moving, because sometimes if they have not been exposed to certain things enough, they can't expand their minds to even imagine a bigger picture than what it is that they've only been exposed to in their own neighborhoods, in their own on their own street, in their own homes. Because if their parents are working, two or three jobs, and she says,
Right.
you cannot leave the house while I'm not here. I mean, while I'm not here, or you can't go any further than 1 or 2 blocks over to play ball or whatever, but then come back home, because we're afraid for our kids these days. If their parents are working so much that they don't have time to go take them to pick strawberries or blueberries or apples in an orchard, something as simple as that, you know,
Right.
it's exposing them to something. Then to have a mentor be able to take them and do some of those basic things can do so much to not only their
Yes.
mental capacity, but to their spirits, to their confidence levels, to them feeling important and special, even if it's just for a few hours.
That's right. I agree. I mean everything you said. I think that that's we have to be proactive and not just reactive. So again, you're right. It's not just the mother's responsibility, but it as a community of
The
we as black
community.
men have to engage ourselves, especially when we see it. I have a quote that I've adopted that says, when you look out into the world and your problem, you say or think someone needs to do something about that, then you just became that someone. And I believe that that has to be the approach and the philosophy that we have, even as as a community, but especially as black men, when we see those opportunities and we say, it may be that little Johnny is acting out because he just needs someone to intervene, someone to step in and to show him something different. Because if they don't have an alternative and another way, or have, like you said, haven't been exposed to it, then it's going to be very difficult for them to change their ways if that's all they've seen, all they've known, all they've been exposed to. So I
Mm-hmm.
100% agree. And there are some great organizations that do mentorship, and we're actually working to develop our own mentorship program where we can have screen and have volunteer mentors for situations just like you said, for whatever it is, and there's because there's um, so many areas that can be addressed and need to be addressed, that we just have to have people that are available and willing to engage in those situations and intervene and take their life experiences, take their education, and expose those youth to those things so that they can be able to, again, as you were saying, I think you put it so beautifully, that be exposed to different things that they have never been exposed to, and you don't know how those simple things could change the narrative and the trajectory of that child's life just because they were exposed to something that they had no idea even was available to them. So I 100% agree. I know the boys club, Boys and Girls Club, they have a mentorship program, and there's another one I can't think of right now here in Atlanta that our organization, we connected with them recently. It may have been SOS Save Our Sons. But yeah, so there are some here in Atlanta. But again, I agree with you 100%. We have to be more proactive in getting involved in the lives of our children,
Mm-hmm.
even if they're not ours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, it doesn't have to be a single parent home that looks out for mentors, or that somebody can voluntarily, say, hey, I'm happy to mentor your son or your daughter, once every 2 or 3 months, because I mean, you don't want to overcommit something
That's right.
that does not work for you. Then it becomes an issue, and then you kind of just drop off altogether. Just be mindful of how much you commit to. But it could be a home where there's two parents, but the kids are only exposed to as much as their parents have ever been exposed to. So
That's
even
right.
in a two-parent home, especially in our communities, we have to begin acting more like a community, what we perceive the community to mean. A community does not mean that you just watch out for who's in your house. I mean, let me go back. When they used to say it takes a village, I remember my
Yes.
parents telling me, and then myself remembering that if my mom would say, well, you know what, if you do something you've got no business doing, I'll know about it, because somebody in
Yep.
the community is going to pick up the phone or
Sure.
flag her down and say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you know what, I saw your daughter over there, and she might be like, she wasn't supposed to be out. So you have a
Yep.
community looking out for them. If a kid gets hurt, somebody's going to run out of their house and be like, hey baby, what can I do for you? Let me call your mom or your dad for you. So we have to begin putting ourselves back in a position where it's okay to actually cover and protect and encourage and support
That's
the
right.
community. It shouldn't be like it has become, which is like, well, I'm gonna mind my own business. And we as parents need to be okay with somebody saying, I saw your child doing this, or I went to go pick my
I
child up for
agree.
school and I saw your kid cussing out a teacher. It's like, we should not
Yep.
be like, oh, that's none of your business and my kid wouldn't do that. Be like, huh, really? Well, I need to have a conversation with my child, hear the child out, and then make your decision on how you want to respond to it. But we need to be open to it. And so
Yeah.
there was something else that I thought of that I wanted to add, um, and it slipped my mind. But anyway, um, I want to ask you, what would you recommend to, or how would you share your thoughts on self care with other men? Like, I don't know if you have a self care regimen, if there's certain things that you do to support your self care. What would you recommend? Because I have lots of things that I can recommend to women. Some of those things would be great for men as well. But you, as a
Right.
male, especially a black male, what would you recommend black males consider doing as a form of self care?
Well, to, to start off, it would be, you know, going in and getting yourself checked out first. Have just a full um, of physical,
Physical.
and make sure, and that's on the physical side, to make sure that um, that there may be some issues that you may not be experiencing, um, but they're there, and they could be things that you can proactively um, identify before they become a problem in your life. And I think that's one of the biggest problem with black men, is because we haven't taken care of ourselves, and we haven't made it a point to, as we should, to get those checkups. Usually it's when things are in a later stage where it's more difficult to treat them and deal with them, that we now find out about them because the symptoms have started showing. And so I think that's the fundamental thing to do, is to start getting those yearly checkups, but also to educate yourself, research and contact and reach out to people who are professionals and give tips and advice and information on what you can do yourself. For me, I I work out and I walk, and I jog. That for me, I'm just I'm a jogger, so it's easy for me to get out in the community, and I don't have to be in a gym because I just find ways to work out, especially now with the with the pandemic going on. It just makes sense to just work out at home. Um, but the physical aspect, they have to stay. You have to stay busy. You have to find something to do to work out every day. Make it a part of your routine, your daily routine. Also, eating healthy. That's a big part of it. For a long time, I was working out, but I didn't have the healthy eating part actually implemented into taking care of my physical self. And for the last 4 or 5 years, to help myself and my family eat healthy, I've been growing a garden. So that's something that you know men can do to make sure that they're proactive in their approach. Is start growing a garden. That way you can eat green, you can eat healthy, you can eat fresh, free from pesticides, all organic. Um, Another thing is mental, as far as mental health goes, we have to, I pray, I meditate, I I read affirmations, confirmations, and I speak those over my life, things that help me daily to make sure that my mind and my mental state is in a good place, and I've already prepared it, so I don't just rush into the day, just being reactive to things that are happening. No, I've already positioned myself in my mental um, disposition to where, no, if something comes, I'm already prepared because I've got my spirit and my mind in tune where they can be in a place of peace and calmness and serenity and just ready to respond in the proper way. And I think there's a lot of even eating healthy has a lot to do with that. Some people are always frustrated and agitated because they're not working out, because they're not eating properly, because they're not taking time to to decompress and to meditate or whatever their practice is to allow that negativity to come out of their spirits and their minds. But those are just some things. Like I said, there's a whole list of different things, but those are just a few of the things that I practice and that I would recommend that people start doing, that Black men in general, that are fundamental so that they can make sure that they are taking care of themselves physically and mentally.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I like all of those. And those are some, similar things that I tell other women and that I actually practice for myself. But I am a huge advocate of mental health wellness, obviously, because I'm a mental health therapist. But I really
Yes.
believe that mental health wellness is the best form of self care a person can give themselves because your mental health is the basis for everything that you do. I mean,
That's right.
think about it. It's like, it affects your behavior, it affects your thought process, everything. So before you
Yes.
do anything, you're thinking about it most times, or you might not be thinking about it, but then you need to understand why you're so, so spontaneous and impromptu and,
Yes.
unpredictable. So all of that goes back to mental health wellness. And to me, I believe that's the basis for you're beginning your self-care regimen, and everything else that you mentioned
Yes.
is great for self-care. It's amazing. I also believe that you know some form of spirituality is also a good place to be. I know there's some people who say that they don't believe in God or they don't choose to do that, but they
Right.
can still be spiritual and not do that if that's what they choose. But you have to
Exactly.
have some accountability for being empathetic and compassionate. And that takes me back to the one thing I couldn't remember that I wanted to mention to you. I believe that backing up a little bit, taking when you're mentoring girls or boys, taking them places where they can learn to have empathy and compassion
Yeah.
for other
Yes.
humans. It doesn't matter what your race. I think is huge, because what I'm seeing a lot of times is that kids these days, teens these days, are indifferent.
Yeah.
They're missing that element. I mean, there are some that care, but they're really missing that element, and I think it's because it there hasn't been enough emphasis on that, and I believe that's why where we are today, where some
Yeah.
people have more empathy for animal cruelty than they do for human cruelty. They don't even
Exactly.
see how that's so imbalanced, and to me it's like we're all human, and the human race, I believe, should be priority, because that's what we are. And all living
Right.
things, we should care about all living things, but it's just so imbalanced when you hear more of an uproar about animal cruelty than you do
Right.
about human cruelty. And so I believe that should be a part of the mentoring process as well. Taking the kids out to, feed the homeless, or just to even talk to the homeless, and,
Yes.
maybe listen to their stories, taking them to, jails and prison systems if there's like, visitation, or even just dropping stuff off for them, notebooks and pencils, writing them letters. Assisted, when the pandemic is over, assisted living homes, where
Yeah.
or nursing homes, where you can see, this is one day you're going to be at this age. One day your parents are going to be at this age. Have compassion and empathy for this age, because you're going to want someone to have that for you. So I could go on and on with that. But before we close, I wanted to mention your foundation, because your foundation and my foundation seem to be very parallel. I have a foundation called
Right.
I Empower Me Too, which is about, teaching people, men, women, teen boys, and teen girls, specifically how to be self-empowered, how to live in their truth unapologetically, and how to set goals and reach those goals, and prioritize that in their lives versus just living in the past. I want them to live in the
Right.
present, but think about the future. So, the Swain Foundation is a not for profit that's also focused on empowerment. Can you share a brief, something brief about the Swain Foundation?
Sure. So the Swain Foundation, like you said, it's we empower the objective or the mission is to empower people to empower other people, and there are different ways that we do that. But one of um, the things that we do is we focus on volunteerism, well, partnerships, volunteerism, serving, and giving back, and those are all things that, as you were speaking about, even the mentorship piece of how, in order for children to have empathy, then they have to see it, they have to experience it. And one of the things that we do in partnership is we partner with um, groups that feed the homeless, and we even host our own events as well, where we go out through the city and we find those areas where the homeless gather, and we will take them just daily necessities, not just food, but hygiene packets, bottled water, socks, and we have a winter drive every year, to where we can take them, blankets and um, toboggans and gloves and just the essentials that they need to at least be as comfortable as they possibly can in the wintertime. And not only just partnership, we partner with a lot of other organizations, um, but we also do a lot of volunteer. And so we're big on volunteerism, where, again, not only do we use it as a platform to help those in need, but as a platform for those who volunteer to be exposed to things that otherwise they probably are not aware of or not empathetic to, because they haven't been directly impacted by it or haven't experienced it at a level to where they can really understand it. And also serving and giving back. That's a part that we do, within our community. But, and again, like I said, the homeless outreach. But we try to um, take an approach to where we can impact a person's life or empower them in different areas, because, as you said, some may be lacking in one area, where others are thriving in. You know, they're good with the finance piece of it, um, but again, the empathy piece may be missing, or they're good with the empathy piece and the finance piece is missing, or the health and wellness, or whether it be relationships, whether it be the mental health aspect. And so we do all of this and we provide all of these services through partnership, volunteerism, and serving and giving back, and just by really connecting with other organizations that have that same or similar passion to empower people and change lives. Um, but we believe that our theme is, you know, lighting the world one good deed at a time, because again, that goes back to the individual, because you may not have to always try to make an impact through a group effort, but be more conscious and focused on what you can do as a individual. I believed, and even stronger now, that for so long, the Black community has placed all of its um, ministry inside of the church building ministry, and that they feel as if I've given my tithes, if I've attended church service, if I volunteered or did something at church, then I'm good. But we live in a day and time now where it's no longer about just church service, but it's more about community service. Because if we're not impacting our community, then I believe that many of our church ministries are not going to be effective because they're not reaching the community like they should. So an individual can find purpose and find their purpose in how they can give back and how they can serve others in their community by simply going out and getting and volunteering and getting exposed and involved in things that matter in the community, that again will touch them and spark that and ignite that passion in them to find other ways that they can do it. And even on a daily basis as an individual, I believe in lifestyle ministry. I believe that ministry is simply service to God. And that's however we provide, or however that ministry or that service comes out of us. You know, it could be a teacher who is passionate about teaching. That's her service to God through teaching. It could be, you know, you mentioned about a mechanic. You know, it could be a mechanic. You know, he uses that platform as an opportunity to provide or minister whatever his service is to God. And so I believe that God has given every individual a passion, a calling, and a purpose on how they can empower other people and how they can change the world, change their community. And it all starts with the individual. And as long as we understand that, in the first book that I wrote, it was called 3D Ministry, and it really deals with um, how to maximize your personal ministry or your calling, your purpose, what it is that you were placed here on this earth to do. And we all have a responsibility to put back into the world at least the equivalent of what we've taken out. So if someone has been nice to me, then it's my obligation to be nice to someone else. If someone helped me out in a time of need, then it's my obligation to help someone else out in their time of need. If someone helped my child in a time when they were going through something, and it's my obligation to help another child. So I believe that it is an individual responsibility, and we can't get too caught up on the collective group effort that we miss out on the things that we have been called to do or assigned to do or have an opportunity to do, and not look over those opportunities, because it doesn't matter the scale that it's done on or the recognition that gets done, because often the things that make the most impact are those things that are done and nobody ever knows about it. But you just did it because it was the right thing to do. And ultimately that is the Swain Foundation's overall general vision and mission, is to just empower people on whatever level we can, that they can empower someone else or impact someone else's life in the same way.
Yeah, very, very good information. And so, Terry, tell people where they can find you.
Okay, so well, you can all information and everything that we're doing. It can be found at terrydswain.com. That's the official website. But also you can find us on Instagram and on Facebook. Also, Terry at Terry D Swain, or on Facebook Terry D Swain. Um, and we also have the Swain Foundation on IG and on Facebook as well. and you can connect with us there and find information about what we're about, what we're doing, events that we're connected to, and what we're doing to make an impact in the community. If you want to volunteer, want to get involved, if you want to just support what we're doing, because I understand that some people are people are called to do things on different levels. As even if we were talking, as we were talking earlier about how can we make an impact with what's going on in the world today when it comes to injustice, inequality, racial discrimination, police brutality. One of the things that people can do is find organizations that are doing the legwork and support those organizations financially, because that's a big part too. And some people may not be able to make it out to the protests or the rallies or volunteer, for whatever reason, but they can still give to support. And so I think that that's another way that people can help solve the problem, is by, if that's the part that they play. But yeah, so those are, but any action that anyone wants to find out about the Swain Foundation and what we're doing, they can go to any of those sites, and there should be a way for them to connect with us.
Okay. All right. Great. So, with that being said, we're going to wrap up our show for today. It's been so great having a conversation with you. I believe that we have dropped lots of great
Yes.
gems and nuggets for everybody that's going to be seeing this show. And hopefully, you'll have some people, follow up with you, start following you, reach out to connect, to volunteer, or just to, maybe somebody will be inspired to become a mentor. So, with that being
Yes.
said,
Yes. If nothing else.
yes, if nothing else, right? So, with that being
Yeah.
said, this is the end of Tuesdays with Tammy for today. You can see Tuesdays with Tammy every Tuesday at 10 a.m. on YouTube. You can find the link in my bio. And also, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can be alerted of all the new videos that get uploaded. I'd like to thank my guest, Terry D. Swain, for today. And one last message for you guys: be better today than you were yesterday, and be better tomorrow than you are today. That's it for Tuesdays with Tammy. Thank you once again. If you'd like to be a guest on Tuesdays with Tammy, please contact me at www.tammyvon.com.